The look on King Felipe VI's face reportedly changed the moment Christian's name came up again behind palace walls. Not anger exactly. That's what surprised me. People expect explosive royal drama, shouting, emotional scenes, but from everything we've been seeing lately, Felipe's reaction feels colder than anger. And honestly, sometimes disappointment lasts longer than rage ever could. Because rage burns fast, disappointment stays, especially when it involves your daughter. And I think that's the part people still don't fully understand about why Felipe allegedly still cannot forgive Christian after all this time. This may not be about one single moment anymore. It may be about what that entire relationship emotionally represented to him from the beginning. Now let me explain what I mean, because this story is deeper than another royal breakup headline. Most online conversations keep focusing on whether Christian truly loved Leonor, Princess of Asturias, whether the palace approved, whether the relationship became too public. But personally, I think Felipe's issue was never just about romance. I think it was about emotional risk. Because fathers, especially powerful fathers, often fear the people who can emotionally affect their daughters more than the people who can politically affect them. And honestly, if you really watch Felipe carefully over the last year, you can almost feel that protective tension growing in real time. Not because Leonor fell in love, but because she looked emotionally vulnerable while doing it. That changes everything for a father. Especially one who already understands how brutal public life can become. Now here's the thing nobody wants to say directly. When you're the future Queen of Spain, heartbreak doesn't stay personal. It becomes national gossip, media analysis, public narrative, and I honestly think Felipe hated that more than anything else. Not only because Leonor was hurting emotionally, but because the world was watching her hurt. That's a completely different type of pain for a parent. Now compare that to how Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, carefully protect emotional privacy around their family image in Britain. Spain's monarchy feels more emotionally exposed lately, more psychologically visible, and honestly, I think Felipe despises that loss of emotional control around Leonor's personal life. Because once public curiosity enters a royal relationship, the relationship itself almost changes shape. People stop seeing two young people. They start seeing headlines, symbols, expectations, pressure, and personally, I think Felipe saw danger in that long before everyone else did. Now let me say something controversial. I don't think Felipe's inability to forgive Christian comes purely from what happened between him and Leonor. I think part of it comes from guilt too. Yes, guilt. Because deep down, I think Felipe understands something painful. Leonor's relationships will never be normal. Ever. And maybe part of him wonders whether the institution itself helped destroy the possibility of normal emotional happiness for her. That's heavy, but honestly, I think it's true. Because imagine trying to build a relationship while carrying military obligations, royal scrutiny, future queen expectations, constant media attention, and public pressure all at once. That's emotionally exhausting before love even begins. And sometimes when relationships collapse under pressure like that, parents quietly blame the person closest to the pain. Even if the situation itself was impossible from the start. If you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because these royal stories are no longer just gossip. They're becoming emotional deep dives into pressure, identity, family control, heartbreak, and the hidden cost of royal life in 2026. Now here's where I think this story becomes incredibly human. I actually believe Felipe may have initially wanted to like Christian. That's the ironic part. From the outside, people imagine kings automatically rejecting every young man around their daughters. But honestly, Felipe doesn't strike me as emotionally irrational. He strikes me as cautious. Very cautious. And I think he probably evaluated Christian through one central question. Can this person emotionally survive the world surrounding Leonor? Not, is he charming? Not, is he popular? Not, does the public approve? Emotionally survive. That's different. Because being connected to the future Queen of Spain means entering an emotional pressure system most normal people would struggle to handle. And maybe somewhere along the way, Felipe concluded Christian simply wasn't built for it. That realization alone could explain why forgiveness feels impossible now. Because from Felipe's perspective, this wasn't just heartbreak. It was emotional damage done to someone he spent years trying to protect. Now here's the hot take I haven't heard enough people discuss. I think Felipe's reaction became stronger after watching how Leonor changed emotionally afterward. Not publicly, privately. You can tell when a parent notices emotional shifts in their child. The quieter energy, The guarded expressions. The emotional caution afterward. And honestly, Leonor lately feels emotionally older than she did before. Not weaker. More aware. Sometimes painful experiences accelerate maturity in ways parents hate witnessing. Because suddenly your child no longer looks emotionally untouched by life. And I think that reality affected Felipe deeply. That's why his energy around this entire situation feels more emotional than political now. Less royal management, more fatherhood. Now let me bring in another comparison because this matters in 2026. If someone like Mr. Beast were running Palace PR strategy, he'd probably understand immediately that audiences are no longer obsessed with perfect royalty. People are emotionally connecting to Leonor because she feels real now. Vulnerable, resilient, human, and ironically, that emotional realism may be exactly what makes Felipe even more protective now. Because once audiences emotionally attach to someone, scrutiny becomes more intense too. Every relationship becomes magnified. Every emotional setback becomes content. That's dangerous territory for a father watching his daughter navigate public life. Now here's the part one keep coming back to. Maybe Felipe cannot forgive Christian because Christian represents the exact moment Leonor emotionally crossed from innocence into experience. That's a difficult thing for parents to accept. Not because children shouldn't grow emotionally, but because parents often secretly wish they could slow down the pain attached to growing up. And honestly, I think Felipe realized during this entire situation that no amount of royal protection can fully shield Leonor emotionally anymore. That realization probably changed him too. Now do I think Felipe literally spends every day obsessing over Christian? No, I think the emotional meaning attached to the situation matters more than the individual person now. Christian became symbolic, a reminder that Leonor's emotional life can be affected, hurt, complicated, and publicly exposed despite all the palace protection around her. That's terrifying for a father. Especially a king who already knows how merciless public life can become. And honestly, I think that's why forgiveness becomes complicated. Because forgiveness usually requires emotional distance. But fathers rarely achieve emotional distance when their daughters are involved, especially not protective fathers, especially not fathers who already carry the emotional burden of preparing their daughters for extraordinary responsibility. Now here's something I learned watching this entire story unfold. Sometimes people think power protects families emotionally. It doesn't. Sometimes power actually magnifies emotional pain because everything becomes more visible, more discussed, more permanent. And I think Felipe understands that reality more than most people around him. That's why his reactions lately feel less like royal calculation and more like emotional instinct. Protective instinct, human instinct, and honestly, that may be the most revealing part of this entire story. Because underneath the crown, the institution, the speeches, and the public image, Felipe still reacts like a father first when it comes to Leonor. Not a king, a father. And maybe that's exactly why time still hasn't softened his feelings about Christian after all this time. Because heartbreak fades differently for parents. Sometimes they never fully forgive the people connected to their child's pain, even after everyone else has moved on. So now I want to ask you something. Do you think Felipe's inability to forgive Christian comes from genuine concern for Leonor? Or do you think fathers in powerful families sometimes become too emotionally protective for their own good? Because honestly, I think that question reveals something much bigger about modern royal life than people realize.